And I, one of the things I try and work with other academics, when I'm talking to them, is to remind them that our student body is diverse. So I have a very small number of flipped recordings in my teaching. So we've got in-class didactic sessions, some flipped recordings for students to work on in their own time, little content-based videos, and then the active learning sessions. And it's interesting because in module evaluation, I'll always have a proportion of students that say, we want more flipped and less didactic lectures, please. And then a proportion of students will say, we don't want any flipped, we want it all didactic. And then a whole load in the middle that says, yeah, we like all three. So, it's students like different things. And one of the things I try and do with my students is remind them that their learning experience is not necessarily the same learning experience as the person sat next to them. So, I can't make all of my in-class sessions didactic, but because they want that, because actually there's a whole load of other students go, no, I need the active learning sessions. Or another student says, I need some flipped stuff because, I've got caring commitments, or I commute and sometimes I can't make it, or I've got to work, cost of living crisis, I've got to work, I can't make it. So I like having the flipped because I'm getting the same experience as the other students because they're watching flipped as well. And I think that is quite challenging to get students to recognise that what they see as the best is the best for them, and it's not necessarily the best for another student. And we've got to try and get that balance right of having something for everybody in the module, so all students kind of feel supported in that learning space. And that's a challenge for me, getting the students to recognise that. And then also some staff as well. And, some academic staff they'll often think, well, when I was a student, this is what we did. And, we're not in that space anymore. The environment is completely different. The technologies that we've got to help support our students are completely different. When I started lecturing, it was an overhead projector. It wasn't even PowerPoint. It was little acetates that I used to draw on in advance with permanent marker pens and then put on the screen and then project and then talk around. So, but it goes back again, it's quite hard for me at my age. It is a little bit hard to put myself in the shoes of my students because I'm a lot older, I've got different experiences. I kind of think I'm mostly successful, but it's quite hard for academic staff to put themselves in the shoes of a student